It was funny because he was so used to doing Abbott and Costello where he would ad-lib that it was very hard for him to remember the dialogue. So every time it was so funny, instead of just stopping because he'd forget, he'd go up on his lines and all of a sudden he would look straight into the camera and go, "So how are you?" Every time, I don't know.
Welcome to A Word on Westerns. Today we are honoring a young lady who was in the Superman pilot. She was rescued by the Lone Ranger. She was scared in Spider Baby, or maybe she was scary. Her name is Beverly Washburn. Please give her a big hand. You were rescued by Clayton Moore as the Lone Ranger in the feature film.
I know. I feel so fortunate. For those of you who saw the movie, The Lone Ranger, I was the little girl, Lila.
Now, who's seen that movie here?
Anybody seen it?
It's a big feature film. It was great.
Yeah, and so when I went to read for the part, of course, I was a huge Lone Ranger fan. So I was so hoping that I would get that part. So when I did, it was just a thrill. Because, you know, as you get older, you reflect on your memories, and that's something that we all cherish. And I have to say that being a part of the Lone Ranger was one of my absolute fondest memories. I felt so blessed, and he was just the nicest person and made me feel so welcome.
You played Benita Granville's daughter.
I did, and then I get rescued by, who do you think?
The Lone Ranger, with Tonto.
Yeah, because
you were on location, too.
Yes, we filmed most of it in Kanab, Utah. Mm-hmm. And ironically, well, if any of you have read my book or know that I'm a huge animal lover, and there's an organization called Best Friends, and that's now where The Lone Ranger was filmed, at that very spot in Kanab, Utah.
Mm-hmm. That's gorgeous out there, too.
Oh, it's beautiful. So it was really fun to go on location because we were there for a few months.
Did you get a chance to see Silver?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've always been an animal lover since the time I was a child, so that was a thrill.
Well, since you were a fan of The Lone Ranger going into your audition, did you have any tricks or anything to secure that role?
No, darn it. I was just, just hoping, oh, please let me get this part. I mean, the thought of working with the Lone Ranger was just a thrill for me, Same with like Superman. Mm-hmm. Because I was so young, I didn't really have the concept of it was an actor. To me, it really was Superman, and he really was the Lone Ranger. So that was a thrill for me.
In the Superman, you're playing with a radioactive ball with these unknown people, too.
Yeah, I was the little girl in the bed. If anybody saw Superman and the Mole Men, with the Mole Men climb in through the window, and then we start playing ball and everything.
We love their costumes.
They were so hokey back then. You could almost see the zipper coming up the back. But it was supposed to be hair, right? But anyway.
Well, they didn't think the pilot was going to sell.
No, I know. In fact, I was doing a convention one time, and this man came up to me and he said, I think we're about the same age. And he said, I saw you on Superman and the Mole Men. And he said, did those little mole men scare you? And I said, no, actually, I thought they were really cute. And he said, scared the crap out of me.
Your mother or father there? Did you have to go to school while that was going on?
Yeah, my mother was there because as a minor, you're required to have 3 hours of schooling on the set. And they send a welfare worker from the Los Angeles Board of Education. And they're called welfare workers because they're there actually to make sure that, you're taken care of, that you don't work overtime, you have an hour for lunch, you have breaks, and you have to have 20-minute increments of schooling on the set in between scenes. And they carry quite a bit of clout. When I did Wagon Train with Ward Bond, he was a wonderful man, but he was used to being with a lot of guys all the time. So he swore all the time. I mean, every other, word out of his mouth was a swear word. And, I was so young, I didn't even know what they meant, so I didn't really care. But the welfare worker at one point went up to the director and said, if he uses one more swear word, I'm taking her off the set. And she had that much authority that she could do that. And so they went over and talked to him, and he wasn't even realizing that he had done that, and so he came over and apologized profusely and everything. And after that, he never even said darn. So.
Well, I think you were in the very first episode of Wagon Train with Ernest Borgnine.
Right. Yeah, I did actually 3 episodes, one with Ernest Borgnine, one with Lorraine Day, and then Lou Costello. And it was his only dramatic role. And we played stowaways. And I was an orphan. And it just shows you, like back then, this was back in the 50s, and it was a different time than we have now, because the story was we were drifters and I was an orphan. And we're traveling together. Well, you couldn't have a story like that these days with a little girl traveling with a man. It would be totally inappropriate.
And he was an alcoholic, too.
On top of it, yeah.
It's like real life today.
But you couldn't do a story like that these days. It would be totally inappropriate. But it was a day, of innocence, and nobody really thought twice about it. And Harry Vonzell, who was, the announcer on Burns and Allen, he actually wrote that episode.
And I think he was in it.
He was in it.
Wrote himself a part.
Yeah, and he was the murderer.
Well, I remember that when it aired because I was a big fan of Abbott and Costello.
Me too.
And Lou Costello was terrific in that. And I believe he was trying to show that, yes, he could do dramatic roles.
Yes.
And you called his booze medicine or something, and you were the enabler.
Yeah, but he was just the sweetest man. And again, I was a big fan of Abbott and Costello, so that was another thrill for me to be able to work with him, and it was a joy.
He did get really good reviews in that, but he died just a couple months after it aired.
Yeah, it was one of the last things he did.
What was he like in person?
He was absolutely adorable. He was sweet and kind, and even though I was young, it's weird now looking back, I sensed this almost like a sadness that came from him. I couldn't put my finger on it because he was always sweet and, always giving me a hug and everything, but there was something. And what I learned later is that, as most of you know, his son had drowned, and that's something he never got over, and he carried that sadness with him forever, and it kind of showed. But then, he would get in front of the camera and be the, consummate professional. And it was funny because he was so used to doing Abbott and Costello where he would ad-lib that it was very hard for him to remember the dialogue. So, because, he just wasn't used to it. So every time it was so funny, instead of just stopping, because he'd forget, he'd go up on his lines and all of a sudden he would look straight into the camera and go, "So how are you?" Every time, I don't know. And then I think he almost kind of did it on purpose sometimes to make me laugh because it just was the funniest thing.
They had a lot of fun watching those dailies, probably.
Yeah.
You played like a spoiled brat on Fury.
Yeah, with Bobby Diamond.
Yes, he just passed.
I know. He was such a fun guy. And yeah, I played a brat. And Ann Robinson, who you've had on your show, just a lovely lady. And so Bobby and I stayed friends all these years, and was deeply saddened at his passing.
But not like Fury. He's king of the wild horses.
But Fury's broken.
Oh, no, he's not.
You were riding him.
Oh, sure, but that's because we're pals. I'm the only one he lets ride him.
Why?
Because he loves me and I love him.
Fury's just a horse. He loves anybody, even me.
Reggie, stay away from Fury!
No!
Leave Fury alone. All you do is make him mad.
Let me go!
Don't open that gate! Let me go! I'm trying to get killed!
Do you remember where they shot Fury?
I think it was Iverson Ranch, and then a lot of it was done on the set. But yeah, a lot of things were filmed. In fact, now Old Yeller, that was supposedly taking place in Texas, but we never went on location. It was all filmed, out on location, and some of it on the set.
And Peter Graves and William Fawcett were in that in The Fury also.
Yeah.
But Bobby Diamond was a good little actor as well.
Oh, he was adorable. Yeah, he was wonderful.
And you were too.
Thank you.
Don't cry, Betsy. Come on. We'll ride back to the ranch on Fury.
You mean you'd let me ride Fury after what I did?